What's up, guys? So it's gonna get pretty nerdy here. I'm gonna be doing this sort of improv slash acting sort of scene from this guy who lives in a different universe sort of thing. So without further ado, here it begins, and you will find out a lot about the story and where he comes from this scene. Hope you guys like it and hope you learn something from it. Right now I live in a very peaceful world. A world where there's no violence. A world where you can't have violence. In fact, it can be quite irritating when I think about the past and our past world. No matter how angry people get, they cannot use violence in any form, and they cannot use technology in any form. In this world, I see my family walking out the front door and just enjoying life. And thinking about where I came from. A world where these sort of things were not possible, where I could not just walk outside and trust the safety of my family. We are in quite a blessed place. In the world we used to live in, people, society, communities, nations, they were born with high levels, different levels of violence on many forms and of many magnitudes. I remember certain people who were born as children with massive fighting capabilities. Enough power to destroy, to level an entire building from childhood. But that was the common practice at the time. And everyone else had that ability, so everyone was on equal footing. However, the sort of devastation and destruction and violence caused was incredible. And to think now, to think of what we are at the current state is just a blessing. Where we cannot, no matter how angry people get, no matter how frustrated they get, violence cannot be used. It's quite the thing. It's very frustrating because I'm the only one who's left from the distant past. And because of this, it's quite frustrating also to see all these people, all these newborns, all these new generation of children come into this world and take this for granted. They wish they had abilities that have long since been forgotten in time. In fact, I'm the only one to remember them. You see, these kids of this current generation, of this current world, they're incapable of any sort of fighting capability or power level. And because of that, they wish for more. They wish they were superheroes. They wish they had abilities. They dream and make stories of how they wish they had the power, the punch to take out an entire mountain. Powers that we used to have. And if they knew of their ancestors and of where they came from, I guarantee you all of them would flock to the distant past, wishing that they could replay these heroic, adventurous stories with ridiculous power levels. I remember I remember an old man. He had been fighting in that distant past world for generations upon generations. The amount of power he had learned was so ridiculous that he could take out mountains with a single punch. Oh, but the violence and destruction and pain and tragedy it caused. And so I live in a world that I'm very much thankful for. Right now, I see my family, my little sisters, with hands small enough to barely cover mine. They come up to about here. Well, they're playing in the front garden right now, and that's something that wasn't possible. And so I'm very thankful for this peaceful time where everyone is equal and there is no war. There's nothing to fight for. There's nothing to lose. And it might be boring. It might be a lot different from what I'm used to. But in a lot of ways, it's so much better. And obviously it frustrates me, these kids. These kids who are just constantly wishing they had superpowers, super abilities. But I remember that distant past, that old world, before what has happened, and before all forms of violence were nullified. That was a time where things were a lot different, where it was just common accepted knowledge for kids to be born with these ridiculous abilities, and for strength and superpowers and super abilities to be not mentioned or referred to as super in any way. They were the commonplace of the time. That is what was common. That is my distant past. And so all those people of the past pretty much gone and died. I'm the lone survivor. And so I sit here now with the final remnants of the memories of this past world, waiting to die at my age. Because that was what was intended. And with it, I see a world that wasn't completely what was intended. I see generations of new children coming up into this world, complaining, taking things for granted, and wishing they had this and that, not realizing how worse off they would be. There was a time when if a child were to walk outside, they would be placed in sudden danger. We were in a war zone. It was quite amazing. Quite amazing. I hope the lesson you've learned is that just take things for as they are. Just be happy. I'll leave you guys with this message. I'm the last survivor of the distant past. End cutscene. Okay, that was kind of strange. I could have done that a lot better. It was really much improv, and I'm sure that could have been very, very nerdy and geeky in a lot of ways. But I mean, if I had a sort of like studio and makeup and hair design and CGI effects, I mean, this could all come together and be like a real thing. And I know like my dialogue was kind of chopped and stuff, but I was coming up with this stuff off the top of my head. So um, yeah, it could have been done a lot better. There's a lot more now I'm remembering that I wanted to say. But the general premise was I had a general idea about what I wanted. And what I wanted was like this guy, he was very, very old, pretty much. And he was pretty much telling the story of how some sort of event, which is unknown, that was decided by the past world that they lived in, maybe the government, it's unknown, triggered something that caused all further life, at least in that world, to be unable to use any form of violence whatsoever. Like you couldn't, like punches would not hurt you, you couldn't break your bones, and it was very subtly implied, subtly implied that um, resources were infinite, and therefore there's no reason to fight or argue or anything, and therefore there's no wars or famine or anything like that. And I truly believe that lack of resources may be sometimes the only cause of maybe warring. And I guess that's debatable. It's subjective. I mean, there could be like religion and other stuff involved, but it's obviously a major factor. And so that was what I was trying to get across in this sort of utopia world. And so he was pretty much recalling how, he was looking out the window and he saw like pretty much his sisters, who were like children compared to him, running out with their little hands and just playing in like a garden in front of their house, and him just like being happy, but at the same time being frustrated and seeing like this younger generation of kids just being very, very sort of spoiled in a way, and not really understanding how lucky they were, and wishing that they had all these powers and stuff that the distant past had, and being unaware of it, and unaware of how much pain and suffering it caused. And then he was talking about the distant past, and I wanted to sort of hint at a lot of it without giving a lot of it away. But basically, you could, if you picked up the story well enough, basically there was the past world where they lived in was, the entire world was a warring nation where like there was ruins everywhere because of the destruction, and there's some places that were decent, but a lot of places were destroyed with rubble. And the people there, they were born with natural capabilities that people would deem superpowers now, but at the time were just commonplace. Children were born with like almost the power to like level a building, like I mentioned, and the veterans or the old geezers who had trained their abilities could level and destroy mountains, and they could fly and battle it out and stuff like that, and it was just ridiculous. But at the same time, it was sort of mentioned briefly and hinted at that this was causing a lot of tragedy, a lot of sacrifices, humans to be dying, and a lot of revenge and fighting, and people trying to avenge other people who had died, which causes more pain and hardship, and more people wanting to avenge those, and then just constant struggle. And then he is the only like survivor of the time, not because of him being like legitimate only survivor, but because all the others had of the time had died of old age and so forth. So he was the only one with these past memories. And so you could tell he was very old and stuff. I probably didn't really do that as well. And basically, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I could have sort of shown to the reader or watcher a lot better. And I guess what I was trying to show was that, you know, superpowers or whatever, or if you watch anime or manga, these sort of abilities aren't that great. You might think they are, but in all honesty, they might just end up causing you more pain and hardship. So if you're that guy who's just very frustrated or whatever, I mean, I see it a lot today, and that's why I kind of relate to the kind of story I present. A lot of people just being frustrated. Oh, I mean, there's this one video on YouTube, it got like 1 million views. There's this guy, he was pretty much like complaining that he didn't have the superpowers that the character in Dragon Ball Z had. And he was like, oh, what can I do? All I can do is jump, flip, run around. And I'm like, those are things that you should be happy about. You should be so grateful for. I mean, what's the use of having the abilities that someone in Dragon Ball Z had? The ability to like shoot aura out of your hand and level an entire mountain. What use would you have of that in this current society? In fact, guarantee you, judging on your character as a kid, you would probably be frustrated one day or just use those abilities horribly and probably level the entire country and cause a lot of destruction, or be manipulated by someone to do a lot of bad things. And so, yeah, main message, just be grateful. And yeah, my main regret with that was I really wanted to bring across more about sort of like what was happening in the world, but again, my dialogue was kind of choppy and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I'm not sure I want to be an actor because of all the freaking stuff that comes with it, like paparazzi and stuff like that. But I always thought that was really cool stuff to do. So there you go, there you have it. Unfortunately, props and stuff like that, I'm not good with that kind of stuff. I think it just get a little too nerdy and geeky if I actually went out and, I don't know, dressed up as someone or something. I don't know. I don't have like makeup or costume design or scenery or CGI effects or anything like that. But there you have it, and yeah, there's one thing I still wanted to talk about, and I guess it was just like, yeah, the past world, the kids there, they pretty much had massive abilities. They could jump massive distances, they could fly, and it was a skill that they were born with, but in order to get stronger, they had to train and fight others and learn. So, yeah, that's pretty much the world they lived in. And I don't think that's too far off. I mean, everything's relative. So, what seems like crazy to them might just be normal to us. And jumping really, really high, I mean, that's simply due to the laws of physics and other stuff. So, I mean, if you just look at other planets and stuff, simply a change in the strength and gravity could put us at a state like that. So, I don't think it's too far-fetched. Plus, maybe there's a world out there that already has that. I mean, the universe holds what? It's predicted like millions of solar systems with maybe dozens of planets. Like, there's got to be a planet out there, given the chances. So, yeah, overall, thanks for watching all 20 minutes of this. I don't know. Thank you. It shows a lot of respect in me for you guys to watch all 20 minutes of this. And I'll see you guys later.